Before we even get into anything at all, I need to be upfront and honest with you, my audience, that I'm not a fan of this particular genre, like, at all. Enemies come way too fast, crap flying around all over the place, every single thing on the screen can and will cause you harm, the bosses are impossibly adept at killing you. It's just not a fun time. So with that in mind, the recording of this video was my first time to ever play this game, and what I was expecting was true. I got my ass handed to me, hard, level after level, enemy wave after enemy wave, boss battle after boss battle. I got annihilated. Thankfully there's only like 5 or 6 of these in the whole library that we'll have to face off against. So what game are we covering this week? Well, none other than Android Assault: The Revenge of Bari-Arm. Developed and published by Human in Japan, and then published by Big Fun Games in North America, but with no release for the UK. Personally, I wasn't at all familiar with Human, but apparently they had released some somewhat successful wrestling games in the 90s for the Genesis and the Saturn. So right off the bat, it has a cool couple of opening cinematics, which is par for the course of a Sega CD game. Apparently this game is the prequel to Interstellar, as we have a base near Saturn, some robots come crawling out, and now a type of robot, the Bari-Arm, has been called to vanquish these nasty guys. Of course you have all the typical weapon choices from shoot 'em up that you would expect. Rapid fire bullets, rocket launchers, laser beams, fire or something. And if you can stack up enough power-ups, you assume the likeness of a flying anime robot dude thing and spray bullets. I feel like this particular form is by far the most cumbersome though. You have a taller target and attract more attacks because of that. So it only lasted for a few short moments and then back to the spaceship I went. I prefer the rapid fire bullet spraying the best, but usually once I got that, a few moments later I would get another power up that changed to a different, less efficient gun. I didn't notice any way to cycle through guns, but I think that would be a better choice in these games. Once you get a new gun, you can use that, or you can cycle through previous acquired guns of that level, and that resets for the next level. But this forces you to become a master of all weapon choices because you could end up being stuck with a laser gun for a whole level. Now let's talk about levels. There's 7 of them. Apparently the first level is on Jupiter, which looks much more lush than I would have imagined. Once you've defeated the enemy on Jupiter, you are now flying through space to get home. You stop off at a few enemy encampments along the way to blast more bad guys out of space. Once you're getting close to home, you take on the Zias on the moon, who are holed up on a lunar base. After that, you enter Earth's orbit and literally are fighting enemies as you are descending through the atmosphere. Now I thought this was the coolest level in the whole game. I was very impressed with the parallax scrolling, the depth of field, the scaling, and other fun Sega CD tricks that they were using. The final level takes place in Bayside City, which I assume is on Earth. The enemies are so absolutely nuts on this level that you would probably be best to have a few glasses of bourbon on your system. You couldn't do any worse sober, and the alcohol may enhance some cool spidey senses perhaps. I will say that there was much more variety to the levels than I was expecting though. All the shooters I've played is just space. Space, space, more space, and space. So the first level being on a planet with trees, grass, mountains, etc., I was very intrigued to keep pushing to see what environments I would discover next. As far as this game, the absolute number one standout for me though is this amazing soundtrack. There were some off-the-wall tracks on this thing. According to the end credits, music on this game was composed and arranged by Nobuhiro Makino, who lists the musicians as Help, and then names them off. Now I'm curious, was this like a session band name? You know, like with the Wrecking Crew who played on the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds? At any rate, it's one of the better Sega CD soundtracks for my money, and honestly would not get old with repeated listenings. Here's a couple fun samples for you. and sound effects were serviceable, nothing too out of this world, but they felt good and they worked. Now, I will say that I have noticed that it seems that the Sega CD offers better sound effects in games than the Genesis did, but I'd always assumed that it was using the Genesis sound processor for effects. But upon further research for this video, I see that it has 8 additional banks of audio that the Sega CD can use, in addition to the stereo CD audio as well. So yes, I'm awful at these games. I'm not much of a fan of this genre, but this particular title did keep me thoroughly engaged enough for 90 minutes of play while I recorded, which is a lot better than what I can say for the Make My Video games that I'm completely taxed out after about 10 minutes of that swill.
Welcome to Make My Video. Got my video edited out there, but the miggity Mac Daddy and the diggity Daddy Mac crisscross.
So even though it's not my cup of tea, I can at least recommend this title because I was entertained, engaged, and it did what it did very well. It won't be winning any VGAs for best of all time, but if you just want to zap robots away, you won't leave disappointed.